Takes place this week. It's a talented field in both basketball classes. In Double-A, we showed you Roosevelt's Tex Phillips last week. Well, he took over against Cambridge today, scoring 26 points and motivating the Teddies to a 66-44 quarterfinal win. Phillips making a bid for some college offers as well, and today he helped himself out. Roosevelt advances to the semifinals with that 22-point victory. And Mounds View over Brainerd 48-43. Tonight, two-time defending champion Owatonna without Chad Colander meeting Cretin-Durham Hall, followed by one of the favorites, Edina, a very tall team, taking on Mankato West. Class A, Rushford-Peterson played most of its game without injured star Aaron Hungerholt, and that allowed Westbrook Walnut Grove's Jason Bakke to score inside. And he had 13 as they won it 63-61. Rushford-Peterson did provide the shot of the tournament. That's Travis Thorne from beyond midcourt. A shot he'll remember, but not enough in this one. 63-61. Westbrook Walnut Grove advances, as did Dawson Boyd, a 56-51 winner over Argyle. Tonight, Becker, a surprise from Region 5, takes on Long Prairie, and Chisholm meets Lyle Muth's Gibbon Fairfax Winthrop Thunderbirds. The big attraction in that game, state scoring record holder Joel McDonald of Chisholm. He stems from a family of basketball, but despite the big numbers that he's put up, he's not receiving top-notch college offers. Mike Max has more in this prep profile.
Joel McDonald has spent the season setting scoring records.
All I can say is that it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun because of the guys I've shared this year with and the people that have been around during the game of basketball.
Those people include his family. 6 brothers and sisters accumulating 11,819 points and counting. The 5 oldest have all coached in Minnesota. His dad at Chisholm for 33 years. And Joel has benefited by being the last of the lot.
Everything is a trickle-down, really, to the last person coming through. If he's ready to achieve and absorb whatever there is there to absorb.
This is Williams Arena, where tonight Joel McDonald will make his first and perhaps last appearance. Whereas he's rewritten the Minnesota high school record books this season, the Gophers' interest has been only modest.
I've talked to Coach Kosmowski over the phone, and Coach Haskins came up to one of our district games, but other than that, that's pretty much what it's been, and I really don't know how interested they are.
But college has been put on the back burners this weekend as McDonald is trying to help shoot the Blue Streaks to the state title.
The only thing that's going to keep us off is being in big places like this and big games that we're going to be playing in. But I think that we got the kind of guys on the team that'll be able to handle that.
With photographer Bill Coit, Mike Max, WCCO Television Sports, with another prep profile.
The Blue Streaks have been waiting. Tonight, Joel McDonald did it.
He grew up in a basketball family. His dad, the legendary coach at Chisholm. He grew up watching his older brothers and sisters have greatness on the basketball court. He had some great tradition behind him. He worked awfully hard, and it finally paid off. A record that has withstood every challenge for 33 years finally bit the dust tonight. Chisholm's Joel McDonald needed 47 points against Cotton, and both Joel and his father and head coach Bob went into the game anticipating history.
It's really exciting. I try not to think about it, but it's really kind of hard now. I mean, it was easier before, but with everybody talking about it, with people mentioning it, that hoping I get it tonight, but people saying I hope I don't get it tonight so they can see me Friday.
Over the years, I can remember Norm Groh as an example as being the epitome of basketball player in Minnesota. And I think it's a kind of it's fate, really, that he would be a kind of a catalyst to what happened to Mike Kitten. So anything that happens on the positive side of basketball, I'm for, not only Joe's striving for the record.
Well, McDonald started out slowly, but he would get it going in the first half. He cans the three-pointer here on way to 29 first-half points. Then, less than 1 minute into the fourth quarter, McDonald needs one hoop, and he gets it here on the alley-oop feed from Dave Lacoe. McDonald is the all-time record holder, and the pressure is off.
Pressure's off now?
It's off, yeah.
How's it feel?
Good. Relief.
Trying to get it for him?
Yeah, we were. I'm glad he got it. I'm really glad he got it. And I'm glad I gave him the assist.
All right, a happy group. By the way, for the record, Joel had a season-high 54 points tonight. Next up, is Janet Carvinen's all-time state record of 3,129 points. By the way, the final score, 109-62. The Blue Streaks now 17-1. It was Albrook winning big over Cromwell tonight.
Jeff Pappas is in for Marsh Nelson, who's in Chisholm tonight.
And there's a big celebration going on there.
Well, you said you couldn't count Joel McDonald out, and boy, he really came through tonight. A terrific night for him. Senior Joel McDonald of the Chisholm Blue Streaks had a chance to make Minnesota Prep history tonight. 47 points separated him from Norm Groh's all-time state scoring record, and of course, the Cotton Cardinals did as well. As we go to highlights tonight, McDonald put on a clinic before a packed house in his hometown. He scored 10 in the first quarter. His team breezed to a big lead right there, one of the 6 threes on the night. Cotton is not a bad team. They came in 11-7, but just couldn't find a way to stop McDonald this evening. He had 29 points by the half. The question, how many would he get? The answer, 54. He broke the record with 7:14 to play on a pass from Dave Lacoe. He has 2,860 points on his career. Chisholm wins at 109-62. Elsewhere in boys basketball, put some of those memories.
10 on the shot clock.
The prep year got off to a blazing start thanks to Chisholm senior Joel McDonald. The boys basketball season featured his relentless assaults on the all-time Minnesota scoring record held by Norm Groh of Foley. McDonald made the big jump in a November 8th game against Cotton when he hit this shot to claim the record for his own. McDonald is now a freshman at St. Cloud State. The rest of the basketball season was simply a case of McDonald and his team fulfilling all their goals as they dominated Class A competition, giving McDonald's father, Bob, a well-deserved state crown. In girls basketball, the story was of 2 Easts. Duluth East won the Region 7 AA title by edging a good young Central team. The other was Mesabi East, who advanced to the Class A tournament. Both teams lost their quarterfinal games, but had fine seasons nevertheless. In hockey, 2 more local teams went to St. Paul as part of another fine Northland contingent. The Section 7 champion was Grand Rapids, and they got there by soundly defeating Virginia MIB. State play wasn't as kind to the Indians, but with goaltender Graham Geisler just a sophomore, there was plenty of reason for high hopes. The Section 2 champion was Duluth East, who advanced in a marvelously played game against Cloquet Esco Carleton. Rusty Fitzgerald's overtime goal put the Hounds in the Final 8. Little did anyone know that Fitzgerald's goal would be the start of something big. The Hounds advanced all the way to the state finals before falling to Hill Murray in the last single-class state title game. Mike Randolph and his team failed to take the final step, but brought credit to the Northland in more ways than just on the ice. In Superior, Dick Torrance's team looked like it would sweep all before it and win a 2nd straight Wisconsin hockey title. But standing in their way was Menominee, and they shocked the Spartans with an upset win in the state finals. The 2 final appearances in 2 years means there are solid programs on both sides of the bay. If Minnesota schools are thinking about winning a state baseball or softball championship, they'll have to come through northern Minnesota to do it. Both Class A champions came from the Northland. In softball, the Hermantown Hawks capped the championship season by beating Mound West Tonka 1-0 in the finals. And in baseball, the Greenway Raiders came out on top, beat Rocori 6-5 in the state finals, giving a long-time Northland baseball power a championship trophy that was richly deserved. That brought summer and a short break, but not before graduation night at Tower Sedan High School, and a memorable night in the life of Jason Goulet, who walked across the stage to pick up his diploma, just over a year after suffering a crippling accident in a football scrimmage. It was a fitting end to a very memorable high school spring. The fall brought more memories, and some of them came in Hermantown, where the Hawks renamed their football field after the late Corey Veach, a former Hermantown star who was killed in a car crash just over 1 year ago. The Hawks then went all the way to the Region 7A tournament. Once again, the Superior Spartans were the big early story. Tom Mostell's defending state champions went all the way to the semis this year before falling, but a 9-2 season was certainly nothing to be ashamed of. In Minnesota, both Cromwell and Albrook reached the Minnesota 9-man state tournament before both teams lost to Grigla Goodridge. But Deer River went all the way to the Prep Bowl before falling to 2-time Class B champion Bold. It was a record year for the Northland in football as more teams achieved Associated Press state rankings than in any previous season. In other fall sports, a fine young Duluth East team reached state in cross country, and in tennis, the Hounds were also a power, reaching the finals only to lose to perennial state champion Edina. The Greyhounds also sent 2 doubles teams to the state semis. And in volleyball, the more things changed, the more they stayed the same. Once again, Region 7 was represented by Hibbing in AA and Cook in A, 2 solid programs who cranked out return appearances to state, showing that tradition can rule in Northland sports as well. As the winter sports get underway once more, this brings our report to a close, leaving us to wonder where the next McDonald, Fitzgerald, or Duncan will come from. But we know they will. The fun is in finding out.
All right, now to football, where 2 Florida newspapers are reporting that the Tampa Bay Bucks have made a substantial...
He scored a lot of points in his high school days, but when it comes to scoring in boys basketball, the big cheese is at the McDonald's. 2 weeks ago, Joel McDonald of Chisholm became the all-time leading scorer in boys basketball history with this basket against Cotton. That pushed him past the previous record of 2,853 set by Norm Groh of Foley in 1958. Joel's effort, though, is just the latest in a long line of basketball success for the McDonald family. Eric Gislason has a look at a clan of basketballers with more family ties than the Keatons.
Remember all those great high school basketball teams from Chisholm back in the late 70s? This is the guy who coached them, Bob McDonald. Why, he even has the same old crew cut his teams in the 70s trademarked. McDonald is still around. McDonald is still coaching. But one thing's changed. McDonald on the bench is now McDonald's. Bob's in Chisholm. His youngest son, Tom, head coaches at Ely High School. Across town, Paul rides pine for Vermilion Community College. Mike McDonald is the oldest son. He's the head coach at Cambridge. And not to be outdone by your brothers is Sister Sue, the head coach for the varsity girls team in Crosby Ironton. They all coach, just like Dad. They all teach social studies, just like Dad. They all win a lot, just like Dad. Matter of fact, 3 of them played for Dad.
You know, I remember way back when, I think my dad said, well, and, you know, all the stress and everything, maybe want to look into something else. And I think most of us looked at it, but not for very long. And then we got back in the thing we love, which is coaching.
It is unique, and it's kind of neat, too, just to keep an eye on everybody's records and how the teams are doing. And, you know, it so happens that my dad, you know, plays 2 of my brother's teams, and it's kind of neat. And, you know, coaching is a stressful occupation, but in our family, it's an outlet, and it's an opportunity to talk to each other about what we should do and what we shouldn't do, and how to win ball games.
And the plot thickens. The McDonald family tree limbs extend further than the bench. Joel is the freshman of the family, but a senior on his dad's varsity squad at Chisholm.
Yeah, that helped me a lot. Using what they used to do what they did to succeed. The things I'm using today are the same things all my brothers and sisters have used in the past.
It's game night in Ely. Tom McDonald leads his Timberwolves into action against Chisholm, starring his brother Joel, who of course is coached by their dad Bob. You with me?
He's the enemy tonight, and tomorrow he'll be my brother again. But tonight he's the enemy, so we're going to go at him and, you know, try to control him. But, again, I don't know how we're going to do it. We'll play diamond in one or box in one, just play man-to-man. But he is the enemy tonight.
It's game night in Cambridge. Mike McDonald's Blue Jackets are up against the Blue Streaks of Chisholm, starring Mike's brother Joel, who is, of course, coached by their dad.
I guess what I'd like to see is us win by 1 and him get 40. So I guess, and make sure he works at it.
You know, I coached long before my kids came around, and I enjoy coaching. And I've had a lot of kids spend as much time with me as my own kids have, and I'm in the gym most of the time with them, so I can't say that I coach for my family or my kids. I presume that I would not hesitate to coach for, you know, many more years.
If you look closely, Dad's mannerisms are all there. And mannerisms aren't all they share. The McDonalds share a style.
Definitely. I like to run and gun.
I think we pattern ourselves after my dad, you know, run and gun.
Chisholm has always been oriented to offensive performance.
It's quite a story. It's quite a family. At home and on the court, the McDonald family is well-traveled when it comes to pursuing their sport. And there'll be no refs around to blow the whistle for traveling.
I still like to watch my dad coach, and he's just an idol, I guess, of mine, and I look up to him, and I had the opportunity to watch Joel and my dad coach earlier this year, and I still learn a lot from what he does, and he's just a good person to look up to, and the same thing with my brothers and my one sister. You learn a lot from each other.
Well, it's kind of an oddity, I guess, because everybody thinks I'm crusty and maybe a little bit of a redneck, but we've always enjoyed, I suppose you want to put it, service to a degree. And we're not, I know, immune to getting tired. We get tired as everybody else of certain elements and situations that occur in coaching and teaching, but we've persevered, I think, and in that I have for this period of time, I think maybe somehow I've set an example for the rest, and they enjoy it as well.
When all is said and done this season, there may be a couple of nevers when it comes to talking about the McDonald family. Like, you never want to say, pass the pot roast, Coach, at a McDonald holiday family dinner. You'd never want to say, good game, McDonald, at the upcoming state basketball tournament in March. The scenarios are many, but the root is one. Chisholm and Dad, Bob McDonald, and the love for the game he instilled in his kids so many successful seasons ago. In St. Paul, I'm Eric Gislason for Sunday Sports Wrap.
By the way, Joel McDonald can still break the all-time Minnesota basketball scoring mark. He needs 146 points to reach the state's overall.
There's the Associated Press Top 10, the last poll for the 1990-91 season, and it lists Park Center, who did not make it, Edina and Cretin-Durham Hall, which did. Anoka was shocked in their region. Roosevelt made it to the tournament, so really not too bad a picks by the coaches around the state, as 3 of the top 5 made it in. It was the bottom 5 that really suffered. Woodbury lost to Cretin-Durham Hall in the final. Red Wing never made it to the final in Region 2AA, and then North lost out in the semifinals to Roosevelt. Mounds View was the shocker for the Anoka Tornadoes in Region 4AA, and then the Chaska Hawks lost to Mankato West, the surprise of the tournament, in Region 2AA. And naturally, those upsets were, of course, which we detailed in our previous show, Anoka losing to Mounds View, Roosevelt knocking out Park Center in the 5AA final, and Mankato West coming from nowhere to eliminate Chaska. Edina, along with Cretin-Durham Hall and Roosevelt, did make it to the tournament, but they would find the going tough in their first day at the St. Paul Civic Center. Let's pick up action with another team in green and gold, the Mounds View Mustangs. Their first game of the day was against the Brainerd Warriors. We pick up action in the third quarter with Brainerd up by 1. At 31-30, the Mustangs work the ball around to Dusty Becker. He's got a tray, but only briefly. Inbounds to Kurt Beyer, and the Warriors tie it back up at 35. The lead would go back and forth as the Warriors, on some pretty loose ball play. All-star center Kyle Smith can't handle the pass, which goes to the baseline. Brian Gustafson there to pick up a loose change. Mounds View's problems increase. Jason Ekman, 6'7" center, fouls out on a light touch for the 5th one, and no big man in there to take on Smith, and his team down by 3. So who picks up the slack? Brad Johnson. Has this guy been big since the start of the playoffs? It's his only field goal of the game, but it puts the Mustangs ahead to stay. Then Brian Ronsky, the dish to Becker, counted the foul, and the Mustangs pull out a tough game that Zig calls attributed to a change in the offense.
We could spread the floor and you know, just keep the ball moving, and we'd take care of it. I could just see the fire in Brad Johnson's eyes again. It was the same replay. He took it to the basket again, and he made 2 good plays, and he didn't finalize on one of them, but he did on the other. And defensively, we went to our 1-3-1, and all of a sudden, we rebounded well in it, and we hadn't been rebounding well in it before. But we felt if we had a 1-point lead, we would want to make them make an outside shot before they got it inside. And they did get it inside and scored, but then we kept scoring too. So, you know, it worked out for us.
And the Mounds View Mustangs take the Brainerd Warriors in the first game of the quarterfinals at St. Paul Civic Center. A tough, gutty game won by the Mustangs, 48-43, as they advance to the semifinals. And in the other Class AA quarterfinal, Roosevelt would take on the other entrant from the north in the Cambridge Blue Jackets. The Teddies came into the tournament unheralded, even though with their record of 22-4. They were so unheralded they didn't even submit a media sheet for the media press guide. One thing that viewers of Prep Sports Weekly know, however, is that they have a devastating front line. That was on display big time at the St. Paul Civic Center. Let's go back to action on the hard court. And it's going to be the Cambridge Blue Jackets' answer for the big height. Shoot the ball. Mark Morrison with the air ball. Cambridge would be 3 of 13 from the ridge all day, down by 5 at halftime. Roosevelt in the second half would start to convert on some of those misses. This one comes to Don Tex Phillips, who finds teammate Wayne Childs for the Thunder dunk, and the Tennies are on their way. Next, it's Phillips to the third big man in the Teddies lineup, Steve MacArthur, and there's just no way the Jackets can handle him at 6'9". Ashani McFarland next for the Teddies. He would come up with the steal, and here's the outlet to MacArthur. Look at the big fellow run the court and lay it in even after the bump. and the Teddies are on their way. But through all that, the Teddies were just 5 ahead through the midst of the third quarter. Jeremy Holland leaving the front court in his wake for 2. But the Teddies turned it on. Phillips to Demetrius Walker, the sophomore at 6'5", lays it in for 2. Roosevelt's future. Here's Rayvel Wilson. Quick pass to Walker, and it's say goodbye time for the Teddy fans as they are on their way to the semifinals. 66-44, the final in quarterfinal action. And Bob Bradovich now joins us for commentary. Bob, the Northern schools didn't fare too well on their first day in Class AA at the tournament, and that must have been painful for you, especially since Cambridge head coach Mike McDonald, an alumnus from you at Chisholm.
Well, Mike had his team ready, and they really were not intimidated, according to Mike McDonald, coming into this ball game by Minneapolis Roosevelt, although they knew they were going to be outmatched size-wise. What I was surprised with is that the Cambridge Blue Jackets wanted to take it inside against Tex Phillips and MacArthur and Wayne Charles, and it just wasn't working early on. Later on, Chris Lovren, their good center for Cambridge, got a few buckets, but after that, after about the third quarter, Charlie, it was really Roosevelt's front line, and Mike said after the game that there was just no way that they could match up athletically with Roosevelt. He got the feeling Roosevelt didn't respect them coming in early, and that may have been the case. Cambridge made a go of it, but Roosevelt just won going away. It was just too much size, too much strength, too much defensive pressure, and that really turned the tide. And so that would set up a very interesting matchup between the Mounds View Mustangs and the Roosevelt Teddies, a game that Mounds View won in the very first game of the season when they went down to Roosevelt and shocked Roosevelt down there.
And that was a game, of course, that was, as many coaches will say at this time of the year, eons ago. And it would be, of course, a different result, different kind of matchup for the Teddies and the Mustangs. Now, the evening session in Class AA matched the two-time defending champion Owatonna Indians against a team that had been so close to making the tournament so many times that Coach Len Hariza has lost count of the number. Cretin-Durham Hall has a history of close finishes in the Region 3AA bracket. Their closest call came this year, of course, when leading by 2 as time ran out. Woodbury guard Pat DeSmet missed a three-pointer at the buzzer. And, of course, that he transferred from Cretin to go to Woodbury, that would definitely have been a stake in the heart for the Cretin-Durham Hall Raiders to finish the year. But as it was, they went to the state tournament, and they would face the Owatonna Indians in their first game of the state tournament. As we'll see, it was almost another guard that did them in. Owatonna's third trip to St. Paul, like the previous 2, in the hands of this guy, Mark Randall, the point guard for the Indians since his sophomore year, 2 state championships under his belt. Speaking of sophomore years, how about the one this guy's had? He's 6'5", he goes 230, down from 245, and as soft a touch as he needs. Get used to the name, Arvesta Kelly Jr. The Raiders have a pretty decent point guard, too. McDonough whipping the ball to Israel Moses for the easy 2, 34-28 Raiders at half. Then Randall went on a scoring tear. His team down by 6 with 3 minutes to play. Randall launches a trade. Good. Owatonna fans at the St. Paul Civic Center really like that. Then Randall with another chance from the dribble with Steve Roska in his face. Nothing but the bottom. Those were his only trays of the night, and it gave him 26 for the second half. Teammate Tom Wenzel looks up and says, is this really happening? It is. Of Owatonna's 69 points at that juncture, Randall had 41 of them. But the record of Jimmy Jensen of Bemidji was 50 was safe because Randall would score no more. Time for the sophomore to shine. Kelly against Wenzel, and it's good. Then with the game on the line, he is good from the line as well. Randall with one last try from 3/4 length, but it's not good enough this time, and the Indians, with a near-record performance by the senior guard, end it in defeat. 76-72, the Raiders beat the Owatonna Indians, and a great game by Mark Randall. That would certainly get him into the all-tournament team, if nothing else, as Owatonna goes on to the consolations, and Cretin-Durham Hall goes to the semifinals. And that brought us to the final game of the day at St. Paul Civic Center in Class AA. The Edina Hornets were the odds-on favorite, picked by both Bob and I, of course, to win it all this year in Class AA. They had height, speed, and questions of their motivation late had been answered with their performance in the Region 6 AA Finals. Well, against the Mankato West Scarlets, they forgot how to play together because Mankato West also brought a secret weapon by the name of Pat Coleman. Scarlets in white go to the secret weapon, down by 5 early on. Here's Coleman with an unstoppable jump hook. At the other hand, it's Coleman with a big rebound. The ball is going to go to Eric Woodford. And where's Edina's team speed here? It's a 3-on-2 break with Jason Kussler's back turned. Woodford just takes it in for the deuce. Woodford tries to create on the next juncture, and it's not really a good shot, but look at Coleman grab the rebound and crane it over the rest of the Edina Hornets for 2. Larry Ronglian on the bench is not too happy. So Brock Miser does something about it. Miser with a clean strip of Woodford and the drive in for the score. Edina has the lead back at the end of the quarter, 19-16. But West would lead by 12 at half. Lose that lead until this play in the third quarter. Woodford driving, slips a beauty of a pass to Coleman. 44-39, end of 3. Edina with one more try to take the lead. This was as close as they got. Prestis with the shot. Rich Frandine with the follow. 50-49 game, but that was as close as Edina would come. Coleman one-on-one with Jeff Somerin. It's no contest. The 360 lay-in, 23 points. Larry Ronglin checking his watch for the time of that consolation final, or I should say semifinal, as the Mankato West Scarlets beat the Edina Hornets by a score of 62-56. And Bob, I know we don't often end up with egg on our faces for the same reason very often, but we both picked Edina to win it in Class AA for the same reason. We thought they'd finally come together as a team, and yet when the first half ended of that game, Edina did not have an assist. We could have almost seen it coming from there.
I guess when I look at it now, I regret making that pick, and I just, obviously hindsight is 20/20. But all through the year, when I would watch Edina, I would have real question marks just about the way this team played. All the talent in the world, big players, quickness. We talked about it earlier, Charlie. But this is a team that just for some reason hasn't put it together. And when it came time to, even in the regional tournament, they never played 4 full quarters. Against Hopkins, they were down at halftime, as you remember, came back with a nice run in the second half. So this is a team that, again, it's a disappointment. Yeah, give them credit for making the state tournament, but a disappointment nonetheless. But Mankato West, definitely the surprise of the tournament in my book. When you've got an all-state center like Pat Coleman, who was just tremendous. And Woodford also was, I thought, made that team go because he had really good quickness. And of all the players in the tournament, I don't see anybody shooting a better pull-up jumper than Eric Woodford when he brought the ball up the court.
Definitely so. So the shocker recorded as the Edina Hornets go to the consolation semifinals. Mankato West advances to the semifinals against Cretin-Durham Hall. And that was day 1 in Class AA. Now we shift our attention to Class A at Williams Arena, where the Class A teams did battle. Making this a very interesting field was the fact that none of the teams were making a return trip. As a matter of fact, 3 of the teams in the state tournament from Class A were new ones. Long Prairie, Becker, Gibbon, Fairfax, Winthrop, all had never been to the tournament. And for Westbrook Walnut Grove, it was the first time for the team as the Chargers, Westbrook making an appearance in 1982, Walnut Grove in 1957 and 67. Their opponent in the quarterfinals was Rushford plus Peterson. They were making their first appearance as a co-sponsored team, the Trojans. Rushford won it all in 1989. Peterson made a show in 1986. And with that much history behind it, this was bound to be a great quarterfinal, and it was. Let's go to action at Williams Arena. An early exchange in the game, typical of that for the whole contest. Travis Thorne of the Trojans driving and off the glass for a 6-5 lead. Jewel Erickson then waits until he gets his hand up, gets the inbounds pass, rifles it to Chad Bakke with the lay-in. The Chargers get the lead back 7-6. Time running down in the quarter. Chargers on the run again. Brian Dvorak tips the ball from Erickson. Thorne picks up the ball, and on the drive, Rushford leading 16-11 at end of 1. Chargers come back. They're on the run again. Jewel Erickson with the ball. His teammates ahead of him. There's the opening for the pull-up jumper. 31-30 at the half, Rushford. Fourth quarter, Erickson goes in for the jumper. Dvorak says, get it out of here. Dvorak finds Eric Bieberdorf for the finish, and a brief ray of hope for the Rushford Trojans. But it's Erickson who provides the knockout off the missed free throw by Tim Fowler. It's back to number 33, and for the first 3-point shot of the game, down it goes. Points his team in the direction of the St. Paul Civic Center as Westbrook Walnut Grove wins it over Rushford Peterson by 2 at 63-61. The final game, however, of the Class A final, or I should say quarterfinals, pitted a team that had been to the dance before, but not since 1982. That was understandable because Chisholm did not have a McDonald starting as a senior since that time. And in the finest sense of the old cliche, the Blue Streaks saved the best for last. Joel McDonald set the all-time scoring record in the regions for Minnesota Prep hoop players, coming into the game with 3,206 points. But the problem with all the attention that a scorer like that gets is that he has to remember that he has teammates too. That's something that Chisholm has never forgotten as a team, and the Gibbon Fairfax Winthrop Thunderbirds learned that the hard way on Thursday night. 44 is the number everybody's watching, which is fine with David Lacoe. He averages 16 points a game. Lacoe can do it from the inside too. Off the pass from Mike Rupert, the slash in the hoop. This was all very good because McDonald was not dead-eye Dick out there in the first half. Watch this one clang off the iron and hard off to the side. In fact, the T-Birds didn't seem overly impressed at all. Ryan Drabishko with the tray from the outside. He would make the all-tourney team. Steve Gillis with the drive inside. GFW led 22-16 at the end of one, with Gillis scoring 14 points. Then the guy got hot on the drives. McDonald with the leading drive from the top of the block. Chisholm would lead 32-28 at halftime. In the second half, Chisholm would start strong and never look back. Lacoe tries from outside, but underneath on the second try, Ted Kreis. He averages 21 points a game, by the way. Kreis again coming up with a McDonald miss, and he's going to be strong inside against Gillis. Stick back, no problem. Didn't even use the glass. But that does nothing. Lacoe clear out time, one-on-one with Richard Bussey. And a big run coming up here for the Chisholm Blue Streaks. The Blue Streaks head on to the St. Paul Civic Center. Coach Bob McDonald analyzed the game with Bob Bradovich.
The last half of that ball game was really kind of a 4-on-4 because you can't have two kids playing with 4 fouls like Gillis did and Joel did, and you know, they get themselves in a hassle some way, and it has a definite effect on the game one way or the other.
I guess you can't be happy with the way your team shot. The shooting percentage wasn't that high, but it seemed that your team really controlled the boards, especially the second half.
Yeah, we were playing horseshoes once in a while. We got some leaners and some close ones, but we couldn't put the ball through the bucket, and that became a real problem for us, and it did for them as well. Thank goodness for that.
And the Chisholm Blue Streaks winning it over the GFW T-Birds, 59-51. Almost seems like I'm announcing a Timberwolves score. The rest of the day's action at Williams Arena included a tough game between Argyle and Dawson Boyd. The Blackjacks led in almost every category but the score until late in the game. So let's go back to the scoreboard and the quarterfinals, and we'll see that Dawson Boyd pulled out a tough one against Argyle, 56-51 your final, as the Dawson Boyd Blackjacks advanced to the semifinals. And then Becker against Long Prairie. The Bulldogs, with a lot of football players making the basketball squad as well, they go up against the tough and tall Long Prairie Indians. Their backcourt included 6'9" and 6'7", but the Bulldogs bigger from the outside, 62-44 your final. And Bob, an altogether exciting day of games at Williams and at St. Paul Civic Center. A big game for Chisholm, with Joel McDonald not having one of his better games, and the Blue Streaks proving that they were a team without him.
Very tough night for Joel McDonald, and one of the comments that what some of the Chisholm players made after the ball game is that that was the first time they'd ever been on the Williams Arena court. They came in for their shoot-around on Wednesday, spent 45 minutes at the Civic Center, and then the first time they walked onto the floor was during the pregame warm-ups, and I think that showed. They were a little tight. They played tentatively all night. Joel McDonald just was not having one of his regular shooting nights. Rims are kind of tight over at Williams Arena. It's a little different kind of setup over there. But the Blue Streaks really proved some mental toughness. I'm forgetting the name. The Gibbon Fairfax Winthrop.
GFW for you.
GFW. I'll stick with that from now on. GFW played a good game first quarter. They shot the ball well, and Gillies was just a monster in that first quarter. Chisholm made the adjustment. Bob McDonald went to the box and won. Actually, there's a diamond-in-one defense that he went to, put Ted Kreis on Gillies, and effectively shut him out the rest of the night. Chisholm had a couple good runs in this game, was well in command before GFW hit some threes coming down the stretch, and that made the score a little closer. But definitely, you know, I think the casual observer of high school basketball looks at Chisholm and says, well, it's the McDonald scoring show. And when you watch this team, you realize that he does a lot of other things on the court. He creates with the ball. He dishes some assists. He gets a lot of tough rebounds, and he's also a good defensive player. And then Kreis and Lacoe and even all the rest of the kids. Ruper's a force inside. Amick plays some tough defense, and Thompson gives you a 6'4" sophomore coming off the bench who can pop the shot and do some other things. So it really showed that the team can play their not their best game, but still come out on top. All the teams that advanced that first day were, I guess, expected to win. The tough luck story there, I think, was Rushford Peterson. Aaron Hungerholt, All-State guard, spraining an ankle in the regionals, and just couldn't do it in the game. And you felt bad for the kid watching him go out there because he was really a detriment to the team. They had to pull him out of there. And who knows, the outcome may have been different. But 4 strong teams go ahead and advance. Another big shock was Becker taking on Long Prairie. And Long Prairie, with 2 6'9" kids, 6'8" kids inside, decided they want to start trading threes with Becker. And that was it for them. Becker played a tough game.
And add to that, of course, the shocker of the Edina Hornets at the St. Paul Civic Center. And you have a pretty good day of action at the St. Paul Civic Center and Williams Arena. Now, when we come back, Bob Bradovich will take you through the semifinal action at St. Paul Civic Center, both Class A and AA, as Day 2 of the state tournament would come up. Prep Sports Weekly will continue. Semifinal action at the St. Paul Civic Center now in both Class A and AA. It's a tough day for Class A schools, especially because the teams that have won the late night quarterfinal round have to turn around and face a 2:30 p.m. game the next day, after having finished at probably 11 or better the night before. Little time for sleep, much less set a game plan. But Bob, you certainly couldn't tell from the quality of play in the afternoon session in Class A.
No, you certainly couldn't. You remember when the two-tier tournament first came around in boys high school basketball, it was a 4-day setup with the AA schools starting on Wednesday. Single A would start on Thursday. But recently they've put both A and AA quarterfinals going on Thursday, and that means one of the teams or one of the brackets is going to have to sacrifice in this day and age. It's the Class A teams. But again, it didn't seem to affect the quality of play, as you can tell as we go to the highlights right here. First game of the afternoon was a good one. Westbrook Walnut Grove, the Chargers, versus the Dawson Boyd Blackjacks. Dawson Boyd, the reason they're here, this man, number 32, Jeff Nordgaard, didn't make the All-Star game. It's a shame he didn't. He takes it coast to coast right here. Dawson Boyd with the early lead. Brian Pressholt, their other big man, hits the three from the left side. But with time running out, first quarter, Jewel Erickson throws up the prayer, and it's answered. But watch Nordgaard. He flips the ball up, he banks it, and he doesn't even know it. Then it's Troy Steen hitting the three-pointer second quarter for the Chargers. And then Wayne Hansen's the recipient of this nice dish from Jewel Erickson. They get the foul, Pressholt with the foul, and the Chargers are happy going up 6 at the half. Jeff Anderson would cut it here to 42-41 in the third quarter, but then it's Nick Keel, eyes it up, takes the three from the corner and knocks it down. Then Jason Bakke will take the feed here from, this is Steen going in. He finishes up the bucket. Dawson Boyd just went cold in the fourth quarter. Nordgaard draws air. Jewel Erickson driving. Finds Jason Bakke inside. He knocks down the jumper. That would make it a 14-point margin at 59-45 after three, and that margin would hold up throughout the fourth quarter. The subs came in halfway. An 80-66 victory for the Westbrook Walnut Grove Chargers. They advanced to the final game by beating Dawson Boyd 80-66. Now in the next Class A game, the Blue Streaks and the Bulldogs took the court to determine who would meet the Westbrook Walnut Grove Chargers. And if this game was running on empty for the two teams, Chisholm certainly runs good on the fumes. So let's go to the action here. Becker trying to open up the outside game early. It works with Karpinski nailing the jumper, but that was all that happened. Dave Lacoe answers, gives Chisholm the lead at 4-3. And then Chisholm would get the padding on that lead as Joel McDonald takes it inside for the three-point play. Doink goes the three-pointer from the corner. Doink goes the shot from underneath from Lundeen. Then the Blue Streaks would come back. McDonald misses the NBA three, but too much height on there. Mike Rupert nails it down. Blue Streaks up big. Joel McDonald hitting the NBA three right here, and it's 24-10 after one. Justin Hegna would cut the margin to 11 in the second quarter as he hits the three-point play, but then it's Joel McDonald inside to Ted Kreiz on the nice dish. Then Kreiz again from the left baseline. He would have 14 points in the third quarter alone, finished with 36. Chisholm led 44-21. Play of the game, Ted Kreiz all alone, jams it home for Chisholm's first dunk since 1982 in a ball game. He gets congratulations from his good buddy Joel McDonald. Chisholm Blue Streaks big, favorable size matchup in this one, 86-56 over the Becker Bulldogs. So Class A play would match up Chisholm against Westbrook Walnut Grove in the final. And Charlie, you hadn't had the pleasure of seeing the Chisholm Blue Streaks this year. You got to see them after 2 games. What are your impressions?
They're a team. I think, the media is mainly responsible for painting the Chisholm Blue Streaks as a one-man, perhaps one-dimensional team. But you'll take a look at Joel McDonald's scoring stats, and you can't help but be swayed by that just slightly. But in looking at the games that we saw at Williams Arena and at St. Paul Civic Center, 2 different venues, less than 16 hours apart for the games, you could definitely tell that this was a team. Ted Kreiz, an amazing force inside. It's lucky he didn't get a hip pointer on that dunk. I'm sure Coach Bob McDonald didn't appreciate that bit of histrionics, but the way that they play is together, and that's the way a team plays. And that, I think, is the impression that Chisholm would leave on anybody who saw them play over the 3 days, either on television or in person, because you don't win a state tournament on one player. That might have been true in the late 60s and early 70s when you had your star big guys like Randy Brewer and Mark Landsberger. But not this day and age. You need more than one because the tray really opens up the game. And Chisholm proves they can shoot the tray with more than just McDonald, and they've got a good inside game with Ted Kreis as well.
And it's nice when you have the three scorers, McDonald and Kreis and LeCaux, and then you got the three role players. Don't get a lot of attention, but Mike Ruper's a strong kid inside. Joe Amick doesn't score. I don't think Joe Amick, I think, had 2 points all the way through the district, regional, and state tournaments, but he played some great defense, and it was his defense on Justin Hegna that I think was the difference there early. Hegna just really never got entracked early. McDonald made the nice coaching move there, put Amick in that ball game and got the shorter lineup, the quicker lineup, and it matched up real well against GFW, who went with Thompson, 6'4" sophomore, who also played well in spurts. So it's a nice mixture, and then when you get a coach who's been there 36 years, that helps as well. So it was Chisholm and Westbrook Walnut Grove going to the finals. Class AA semifinals would put the Mounds View Mustangs up against the Roosevelt Teddies. Now Zig Galls of the Mustangs knew he was up against a vastly different squad than the one he beat early in the season. That didn't make any difference when they took the floor at the St. Paul Civic Center because the Mustangs thought they had the plan to take the Teddies. Let's go to the highlights right here. And what do you wonder what this man has got the poker face for? Frank Hedges. Why? He's got this man shooting the threes. Trent Lawson was 3 of 4 from three-point land, but the Mounds View Mustangs can also shoot the trays. Here Ronsky gets the nice roll, and then it's Dusty Becker nailing one from here. He gives them the lead with this shot from the left side. Then Ronsky again with another three, and then when Jason Ekman put this one up here, it was 35-27 after 3 quarters, and the big man and the Mounds View Mustang fans were very happy. But not for long, as Wayne Charles would hit a real tough baseline layup right here. Then Tex Phillips would get the roll on this three from the corner, and then Ione Henderson would pick off a behind-the-back pass. Watch this one, key play here. Rodkowitz trying to behind-the-back pass. Henderson picks it off, goes all the way, ties it at 37. Now another steal would set up this missed dunk by Charles. Mounds View now hustling back, or excuse me, Charles with the putback on the Tex Phillips miss. Johnson hitting the bucket for the Mounds View Mustangs. 40-39 at that point. Ziggy Calls drawing the play on the sidelines, and he gets the ball in the hands of his top player, Dusty Becker, but that one would rim off no good. Hedges and the Roosevelt Teddies would go on to the championship game. 40-39, the key free throw there by Tex Phillips. He wins it for the Mounds View Mustang, or excuse me, for the Roosevelt Teddies. In the final game of the evening round was Mankato West, the surprise of the tournament. They're taking on the Raiders of Cretin-Durham Hall. Now, having already knocked out one top 5 team, the Scarlets were ready for more, but so were the Cretin-Durham Hall Raiders, Charlie, in this one. And the big difference, Arvesta Kelly, he got off the blocks early, gave them some big points. Obviously, does not play like a sophomore. And then it was McDonough and Tower going, finishing it up for the Cretin-Durham Hall Raiders. Mankato West, another good game from Woodford and Coleman. Not enough. 63-53 was your final. In the consolation semifinals, it was the Argyle Eagles 63-61 over Rushford Peterson. Then the Long Prairie Indians, kind of a surprise, 57-47 over the GFW T-Birds. Class AA consolation, Brainerd waxing Cambridge 74-41, and then Edina bouncing back, tough coming up from the Edina Hornets, but it's 82-59 over the Owatonna Indians. So in Class A, Charlie, what you'd have is a game for the 8. Because just before the tournament, as you remember, Cretin won that one going away. It was 61-45, but now coming in the championship game, you get the revenge factor going for the Roosevelt Teddies.
And another thing I think, too, that you have to consider is the fact that so many teams in this year particularly came on strong late. Roosevelt is a great example. Cretin-Durham Hall, they were consistent all year long, but I don't think they really got going until they beat Anoka in a non-conference game late in the season and then took on Roosevelt and beat them as well. Mankato West, how can you say anything more than they are a huge surprise? They did lose a lot of their games in overtime and by a couple of points here and there, so they really were a better team than most people gave them credit for. And then, of course, Mounds View doing what they did to Anoka in the Region 4AA final. So many teams came on well and played well late that this was really what a lot of people thought was going to be a scrambled field. But really, the 2 best teams in Class AA did meet in Cretin and Roosevelt.
That's exactly right. I think a little bit of the luster of the AA tournament was a little bit off because, you know, a lot of the top teams in the top 10 got knocked off early in the regionals, but when you look at the way the teams played during the tournament, Roosevelt with that imposing front line, and then out of nowhere they throw a zone against Mounds View, switch it to that tight man-to-man late, and that's what closed that gap, 37-28. They closed it in a hurry when they put that man-to-man pressure on, and that very imposing front line. And Tex Phillips is just a player. There's nothing else you can say about him. As far as Cretin-Derham Hall Raiders, very good balance. Tower did a lot of work in the off-season. Here's a kid who could barely jump off the floor, and he was getting up and making some nice shots and going to the basket well. McDonough, very underrated point guard, and Arvesta Kelly, kind of the X factor here, is kind of the high school Charles Barkley player, very much of an impact player. So it set up two great matchups coming in for the championship round.
And when we come back, we'll have championship night at the St. Paul Civic Center for you here on Prep Sports Weekly in both classes when we return. Championship day at the St. Paul Civic Center for the Class A teams. First game in front of the cameras on tap, the third place game in Class A between Dawson Boyd and Becker. Now, both teams had expected to make it to the final, and that was a game that was played for pride, generally, the third place game. But both of them played like it was being played for the top hardware. Dawson Boyd had not made an appearance in the state tournament for quite some time. For the Becker Bulldogs, pride was also on their side, as that team had gone to the state tournament in football. Now we take a look at the third place game, and we'll see that Becker, when they got to the game, looks like they forgot their road shorts, but they didn't forget how to move the ball and shoot. Justin Hegna on the fake, the baseline drive, the dish to Jeremy Karpinski for the interior points. Dawson Boyd has a couple of take-charge guys, too. Jeff Norgard at the top of the circle finds a cutting Mike Gunderson open below for the easy deuce. There's a take-charge guy, too. Controls the rebound, outruns the Becker transition defense, and lays it in for the score after the bump. But Hegna is a take-charge guy, too. Time running out in the first quarter. The drive in the lane, the pull-up, and the four-footer uses all of the clock as it goes down. Becker takes a 4-point lead, 21-17. Think a third-place game doesn't attract the celebs? Wally the Beer Man. Non-alcoholic beverages, of course. Second quarter, more Becker and more Hegna and more Karpinski. The trade does not fall, but the stick-back does, courtesy of Karpinski. At the other end of the half, the dueling threes. Hegna at one end after some dribbling woes, and at the other end, he knocks it down. And then Brian Prestvold with the heave coming up from 23 feet. Look at this one as Becker still leads 39-34 at halftime. Now the third quarter winds down. The Jacks still down by 2. This time it's Norgard with the desperation heave off the glass. First lead since the start of the game for the Jacks, 57-56. The game would seesaw back and forth until this play. Off a Norgard miss, Jeff Anderson rejected. Ball comes to Corey Larson. Prestold cutting in, counted for the tie at 73 apiece with the free throw coming up. That Prestold makes without any trouble. Dawson Boyd, with these two guys in charge, wins third place 75-73, and they take the third place championship home at the St. Paul Civic Center as they win it by a score of 75-73. And that brought us to the Class A final between Chisholm and Westbrook Walnut Grove. Unfortunately, this was a show-me type of game. With so much attention being paid to Joel McDonald and his breaking of the Minnesota State scoring record, a lot of people were saying, so what? Win as a team instead of with one star. They did just that. Joel McDonald, the realization of a dream. The last in line of the McDonald clan at Chisholm, he wants to go out as a winner, but standing in way, a tough Westbrook Walnut Grove team. Pretty obvious the Blue Streaks wanted him to have the ball early. He responded. But when the Chargers' defense sagged on him, there was Ted Kreis to put in the deuces too. But the Chargers can play this game as well. When Kreis loses the handle in the paint, Troy Steen outlets to Jewel Erickson, who despite Joe Amick's hand on the ball as he comes in, almost all ball, the ball he still scores, tied at 19, end of 1. Chargers come right back. McDonald gets picked off by Erickson, and that's a pretty tray. The Chargers with McDonald, Erickson, and the outlet to Troy Steen. 2-point lead for Westbrook Walnut Grove at halftime. Third quarter, still a tight game. Kreis with the drive and the pump. And the score, I should say McDonald, as he gets the body control on this one and the foul as well. Chargers will equal to it. Nick Keel knocking down the tray. Fourth quarter, however, all Chisholm. McDonald with the attack and the pull-up jumper, one of his favorite shots. Touch passing as the crowd gets into it. Coming up next, Lacoe to McDonald to Kreis, and the lead is 64-54. Brian Thompson coming up now. The outlet to LeCaux, 74-57, and Chisholm the bench, I should say, goes berserk. Championship in hand. Joel McDonald would credit his teammates.
We got the guys on our team that are the kind of guys that will stay focused and keep their heads straight. And I guess last year made us want to prove a point. We were really disappointed with last year. We knew we had a chance to get down here still, but it was a big letdown. It gave us a lot of incentive for this year.
What was going through your mind there in the fourth quarter? It was a 58-56 game, and I think there was about 6 minutes to go, and you guys went on a 14-0 run. What were you feeling at that point? Were you worried when you're only up 2, and then it looked like the confidence just took over after that?
I think the guys on the team were a little worried, along with the coaches.
Any coach in particular?
Everybody was. Everybody. I'm sure all the fans were too. But we still had confidence. We were ahead by 2. That's all you got to be up by. As long as you're not behind, nothing's wrong. And when we went on that run, everything felt better and everything kept going for us. And we even got to sit out a little bit at the end.
And the championship in boys Class A goes to the Chisholm Blue Streaks. They're 4th in the school's history, 3rd for Coach Bob McDonald, 77-61, as they beat a very good Westbrook Walnut Grove Charger team, but beat them convincingly with that big run in the 4th quarter. And Bob, a lot of emotion spilling out on the court after this game. I felt tempted to edit in the mist in your eyes as you were courtside after the game, but you really got a sense of team pride in the Blue Streaks win.
Well, when you grow up in a small town like Chisholm, Charlie, that is really into basketball the way Chisholm is, and obviously the credit of that goes to Bob McDonald. And I guess when I came around the corner there and I saw Bob McDonald and his assistant coach, Roger Tutloff, these are the coaches that I had when I was in 3rd grade. These guys go in the gym every Saturday morning and start the youth program, so it's no secret why Chisholm constantly produces good teams and competitive teams. They're not always state championship teams. Of course, the year I was there, certainly not a state championship team, but teams always very competitive, and that's really the reason why. And when you look at the kids on the team, these are kids I still go up and play with during the alumni games over the holidays and over the summer. And you have to remember, Joel McDonald was running around in the gym as a 4-year-old or 6-year-old, throwing balls into a little miniature basket in the gym when I was on the varsity practicing, and little David LeCaux was bouncing around a ball as a 3-year-old. And you just had the sense that this is a team that was going to come together. And, you know, with the disappointment last year with McDonald's injury, they didn't make it down. They felt that that was the year that they could have won back-to-back. But it really made them focus this year, and especially the way they won it. Got past a tough first-round opponent, pretty much blew out Becker, and then against the #2 team in the state and an excellent team in Westbrook Walnut Grove. You know, certainly the fact I'm from Chisholm, I'm a little biased, but Westbrook Walnut Grove had just a tremendous team, a lot of balance and a lot of talent out there. But the way Chisholm won it and won it going away with the big run, Joel McDonald talked about it. One of the things that they had problems with during the year was the fact that they just couldn't deliver that knockout punch. And boy, when they needed it state championship time, they delivered it. And yeah, it was an emotional time, a lot of tears of joy when the entire McDonald clan got together for some bear hugs on the sideline. So a nice team effort. And again, one of the things I guess I was personally happy for, not just the fact they won, but the way they did it, and with every member on that team contributing.
You can almost see the mist in his eyes gathering now. Let's take a look at the consolation final in Class A play. That game was played earlier at the St. Paul Civic Center between Long Prairie and Argyle, and the Indians come up with their 2nd win of the tournament as they beat Argyle by a score of 56-52. For all their height, they did have some problems with the tougher, quicker teams in the state tournament in Class A. And that would bring us to the Class AA finals on Saturday night. In the 3rd place game, Mounds View versus upstart Mankato West, or you could have it Mounds View as the upstart versus Mankato West, the conqueror of Edina. The surprise winner of Region 4AA over the Anoka Tornadoes, the Mounds View Mustangs, versus Mankato West, the conqueror of Edina, in the quarterfinals. Now, this one was going to be a survivor's game, as both had poured their hearts out in the semifinals in losing efforts. We go to action at St. Paul Civic Center. Mounds View started out even with the Scarlets, due mainly to this guy, Jason Ekman. He sweeps down the rebound here, then joins the fray at the other end, taking his own sweet time as the Mounds View Mustangs pass it around the perimeter. But once he gets the ball, look at this. 2 people on him, doesn't seem to make any difference. He lays it in off the glass. He scored the first 10 points the Mounds View Mustangs had. Now, with Aaron Ruth looking on from the sideline due to a leg tumor, West retaliates with their own big man, Pat Coleman. West leads it by a score of 29-24 at halftime. Then Coleman shows some versatility, and in so doing, busts the Mounds View zone. From the ridge, good. 2 straight trays in a row for the 6'5" senior, 16-2 run for the Scarlets. Mounds View goes back to the old reliable Ekman, who finished with 27 points. He cut the lead to 5 at 45-40. But the Scarlets go back to their own as Coleman with the turnaround in the lane and then pumps the jumper. 27 points for him as well as the Mankato West Scarlets beat the Mounds View Mustangs by a score of 56-49. Now let's take a look at consolation title action as it's the Edina Hornets also coming back strong as they win their second game of the tournament. They went to double overtime to beat the Brainerd Warriors on a shot by Jeff Van Summer, 91-89 in this one in 2 overtimes as Edina takes home some hardware, winning the consolation final. Now for championship night in Class AA. Cretin-Derham Hall, previously noted for baseball and football prowess. Roosevelt back into the tournament for the first time in 34 years. It's the first time ever that a Minneapolis City team and a St. Paul City team had met for the championship in state Minnesota basketball. Well, this would be a game for the memories, and this game provided a lot of them. Cretin-Derham Hall with its huddle before tip-off, rather conventional style. The Roosevelt Teddies a little bit less conventional. First points of the game, Matt McDonough to Steve Rosga for the outside Jade. His brother Jeff played a little bit for the Raiders, but his mistake pass here results in a dunk off the steal for Tex Phillips. But both teams were warned about hanging on to the rim after the quarterfinals. He dunks it, but he hangs it, and Frank White rings him up for a technical for hanging on to the rim. Touch and go for the Teddies in the second quarter. Phillips' outside pass come back to Wayne Charles, and his outside shot goes in. I should say Steve MacArthur rebounds it in. Raiders go to John Tower off the drive, and that's good. Want to see it again? Matt McDonough does. So does Tower. Down for another one as the Raiders get it a little bit closer. They were led by 2 at half. Second half, Arvesta Kelly drives Wayne Charles with the steal, and the resulting dunk, the no-no technical again. That was a little bit closer, says Jim Pearson, but I'll still call it. Cretin went on as it's Arvesta Kelly Jr., and with that shot, the lead is 8. Third period, seconds left, and Tex a dead eye from the horn for 3 at the end of things. Now, 34 seconds left in regulation. Teddy's down by 4. Tex with the tray and the foul. And we go to overtime as Tex Phillips makes the free throw to tie it up. Now, Tower makes good for his goof with a tray and then forced to foul. The Teddies pick on Mac McDonough, which is not a real good idea as he was flawless from the line. And then to make matters worse for the Teddies, insult to injury. The tray does not fall. The ball is picked up by Kelly. It's outletted to John Tower. Remember we said he couldn't jump? Now he can. He finishes off the Roosevelt Teddies. And the trophy goes to the Teddies, and here's Coach Len Horiza.
Yeah, Johnny Tower and McDonough, for instance, and Mosen, they're all at my camp since the 5th grade, and they brought up, and then he went up to St. John's with me, and I've been following him, and they've been kind of a neighborhood type of kid, you know, and they're just good kids, and they're dreamers, you know, they just love to play basketball, and they just set kind of a mental goal, I want to be in a state tournament, and that's what I'm quoting John from last year, and this year they wanted to win the thing.
Said before the Teddies took home a trophy. They did. It was the second place trophy. Cretin-Derham Hall wins it by a score of 74-62 in overtime. A rather confusing score unless you saw the action at St. Paul Civic Center. And Bob, that was about as good as it gets for a high school final, and it was made even more exciting by the 4-point play from Tex Phillips. Cretin showed a lot of heart coming back from that one in overtime.
You know, the conventional wisdom in that kind of situation, Charles, is the team that ties it and has the momentum going into overtime is usually the team that wins it. And I think 2 things happened that took a lot of the wind out of Roosevelt's sails. The fact that they had the ball, Cretin turned the ball over right in their front court. Roosevelt had a chance to win it, but Tex Phillips fumbled a pass inside. It got knocked around. They never quite got the shot up, so they went into overtime. And then right away in the overtime, Cretin surprisingly wins the tip, and Johnny Tower comes down and nails the 3. And I think at that point, you could just see it on the Roosevelt kids' faces that there's a little bickering going on, there's a little dissension. Tex Phillips came down, forced a shot on the other end, and that's that's kind of when that team fell apart. And you know, both teams played. It was a hard-fought game. I don't think it was a classic game. There was turnovers, there was miscues on both sides, but both teams just really played with a lot of intensity. And give Cretin a lot of credit. Matt McDonough, I think, really gets this team going because he handles the ball well. He handled the pressure in the backcourt very well, didn't turn the ball over. And Tower came up big. I think some unsung heroes for Cretin, Israel Moses, always known as the defensive player, got 9 points and looked real confident going to the basket. Roska came in with some good play. Nick Tamble, a little used reserve, came in and did some good play for them as well. Kelly looked a little tentative initially, and he didn't take over the game like he usually did. And he may have been intimidated. I'm not really sure what the situation was, but down the stretch, he picked it up and made some big buckets. So hats off to Cretin. I think with Edina getting knocked out, that really opened up the door for them. But it wasn't easy, and I think it just shows that there are a lot of good teams, a lot of parity, to use a Pete Rozelle phrase if you want, a lot of parity in the AA bracket. And Roosevelt, kind of a bitter pill. It just seemed that you know, the neutral crowd, the people that get the seats in the middle, really started pulling for Roosevelt when Phillips made that 4-point play. And I admit that was one of the more exciting things I think I've ever seen in high school basketball, but they just couldn't quite get it done after that. But a very exciting game, and not indicative, the score not indicative of how close this one was.
Very definitely so, as the Cretin-Durham Hall Raiders take home a championship for our St. Paul school for the first time since 1949. Last school to do that, St. Paul Humboldt. And with that, let's take a look at the Class A and Class AA all-tournament teams. Now, these teams are picked by the media just before the end of the first, or I should say after the end of the first half of the championship game. So everybody gets a real good look at who they want to vote for, and there's no positions on this thing either. You can vote for whoever you want, regardless of position. And with that, not too many guards on this team. Mark Randall of Owatonna, of course, stands out. Rich Frandine of Edina, Jason Ekman of Mounds View, Kyle Smith of Brainerd, and Wayne Charles of Minneapolis Roosevelt, all forwards and centers. And the same thing all the way down the line. Steve MacArthur of Minneapolis Roosevelt, Tex Phillips of Roosevelt, Arvesta Kelly Jr. of Cretin-Durham Hall, and John Tower of Cretin-Durham Hall. Kelly and Ekman, two sophomores that make it to the all-tournament team. Let's take a look at the Class A tournament team, and if this name wasn't on top, there'd be a wanted poster out for the people that made the poll. Chisholm's Joel McDonald at the top, along with Ted Kreis, his teammate. Great 1-2 punch for the Chisholm Blue Streaks. And for the Westbrook Walnut Grove Chargers, 3 people on their team make the all-tournament team. Jewel Erickson, Nick Keel, and Jason Bakke, inside and outside for the Chargers. Rest of the team, the 1-2 punch for Dawson Boyd, Jeff Norgard and Brian Prestold, and then Stephen Gillies of Gibbon Fairfax Winthrop, Justin Hegna of Becker, and Jason Ustrenka of Argyle. And so congratulations to Cretin-Durham Hall and to the Chisholm Blue Streaks, the winners of Class AA and A titles respectively at the boys basketball tournament at the St. Paul Civic Center. Next up, a last look at hockey under the one-tier system as the Maroon and Gold series of all-star hockey players got underway. And fittingly, this one went to overtime too. Details in a couple of minutes. Also, we'd like to remind you that we have a special coming up for you as far as small college sports is concerned. The St. Thomas team won Division III in women's basketball, you may as well call it that. Lori Trow of Rochester John Marshall, Susie Bouquet of Kellogg, the leaders for that team, and they won it over Muskingum. And that game you'll be able to see right here on KABL Channel 52. So along with the Metro Gold Hockey Classic, you'll also have the Division III women's final in women's basketball. And that will do it for us this week on Prep Sports Weekly. Next week, our Winter Sports in Review show as we take a look at the great season of high school action, most of it provided for you right here on KABL Channel 52. Till then, for Bob Bradovich and associate producer Jeff Island, this is Charlie Stellick thanking you for watching. The boys' 1990 and 91 basketball season could be summarized with the statement, how the mighty have fallen. The teams that occupied the top spot for the entire year in Park Center and Anoka were nowhere to be found at the state tournament. Edina was out of the running for the title by the end of the first day's play at the state tournament, which left it for the remaining two of the top five in Cretin and Minneapolis Roosevelt to fight it out for the title. Well, Cretin got there by eliminating another top 10 team in Woodbury, while Roosevelt dropped Park Center in the 5AA final for its only loss of the season, as they've been ranked #1 all season long. On the Class A side, most of the news was made up north, where Joel McDonald broke all the scoring records there were to be broken in Minnesota State boys basketball, playing his senior season for the Chisholm Blue Streaks. And early on, the teams that did dominate the polls for the season showed us why. The Anoka Tornadoes, not a scoring powerhouse by any means, but they're kind of like a jungle snake. They kill you slowly.
State scoring record, and of course the Cotton Cardinals did as well. As we go to highlights tonight, McDonald put on a clinic before a packed house in his hometown. He scored 10 in the first quarter. His team breezed to a big lead right there, one of his 6 threes on the night. Cotton is not a bad team. They came in 11-7, but just couldn't find a way to stop McDonald this evening. He had 29 points by the half. The question, how many would he get? The answer, 54. He broke the record with 7:14 to play on a pass from Dave Lacoe. He has 2,860 points on his career. Chisholm wins at 109-62. Elsewhere in boys basketball,
Joel McDonald became the top schoolboy scorer in state history. Now has 2,860 points after getting 54 last night. It's relief for Joel and teammates and coaches, but all along their focus has been on trying to get to the state tournament.
Yeah, it's definitely item number one. It's a bigger goal than it was to get this record. This record means something to me, of course, but not as much as getting down to cities in March.
Well, it was a great night here, and you had a lot of fans to watch you. A spectacular play to get the record, too. That kind of added to it.
I suppose the spectacular play about it was the pass. I couldn't have done that without the nice pass that David threw me.
Beautiful.
So that's what got me that basket.
Joe Schmidt.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Sunday Sports Wrap. I'm Joe Schmidt. We have basketball, basketball, and more basketball for you tonight. Starting with the Timberwolves, who tonight hosted Houston at the Target Center. It was their 4th straight game at home.
I suppose you want to put it service to a degree. And we're not, I know, immune to getting tired. We get tired as everybody else of certain elements and situations that
Minnesota history, a father and a son were coaching teams in the same.
Loss for the basketball Gophers, one that has led to some harsh words from Clem.
Youngsters take part in Saturday morning basketball under the eyes of head coach Bob McDonald, his staff and players off the high school team. Or it begins here in the upstairs hallway room of the McDonald home on Southwest 5th Street in Chisholm, where they sharpen their shooting eyes or relax before the big game. The chapter this year ended in the Twin Cities at the St. Paul Civic Center, where for the first time in Minnesota history, a father and a son were coaching teams in the same state classic, and as a bonus, another son was a player. This is the McDonalds, Minnesota's basketball family, and we'll meet all of them in the next half hour.
If your family's tired of the same old takeout food, bring home the finest Italian food on the Iron Range from Valentini's Supper Club. Valentini's has a full takeout menu featuring their famous homemade Italian foods: ravioli, carbonara, chicken cacciatore, gnocchi, and more. Just call ahead to place your order, and remember, if you're entertaining, you can buy Valentini's great pastas, meats, and sauces frozen in bulk and at wholesale prices to cook at home. Valentini's famous Italian restaurant, still one of the finest supper clubs on the Iron Range in downtown Chisholm.
When it was time for me to buy a new car, I was a little bit apprehensive. I had some idea of what I wanted, but with so many cars and dealerships, where do you start? So I asked a lot of people I knew, and I did some checking on my own. I wanted the best car at the best price. I went to Anderson Chevrolet in Mountain Iron, Minnesota. It's obvious why Anderson Chevrolet has been in business for 75 years. They helped me find the right car. If you're looking for a new car, head to Anderson Chevrolet. They won't steer you wrong.
The First National Bank of Chisholm is the Northland's real estate lender, with a staff of experts to help you with your home purchasing or refinancing, plus competitive interest rates on FHA, VA, and conventional loans, financing homes in all of Northeast Minnesota. The First National Bank of Chisholm also has car and boat loans available, with some of the lowest rates in the area. Just 8.5% on a 3-year loan, 9.98% on a 4-year loan. Competitive rates and friendly service. That's what First National Bank of Chisholm is all about.
Congratulations to Coach Bob McDonald and the Chisholm Blue Streaks on a great season from these area businesses. Rupp Furniture, serving northern Minnesota for over 86 years. WMFG Radio, the high school and college sports station of the Iron Range. And Gornick's Big Dollar, supporting Chisholm athletics for 70 years.
Night Court will not be seen tonight, but will return tomorrow at the same time. Stay tuned now for a KDLH special sports presentation, The McDonalds, Minnesota's basketball family. This program is being brought to you by these fine area businesses: Anderson Chevrolet, Valentini's Supper Club, First National Bank of Chisholm, Gornick's Big Dollar, Rupp Furniture, and WMFG Radio.
The McDonald family has become the #1 basketball family in the state, maybe in many states. The National High School Federation does not keep scoring or won-loss records by families, But certainly in the Gopher State, Bob and Darlene McDonald and their 6 children have left a lasting mark on the game of basketball. Bob McDonald is a Chisholm native who went to junior college at Hibbing, then on to McAllister in St. Paul, but he soon left for UMD, which turned out to be a break for this reporter.
I'll always be indebted to you for leaving McAllister and coming to UMD.
Well, we created a relationship between us because you got the good job and I moved out. Anybody who got to be the supervisor, at least at the girls' dorm, certainly had something going for him.
Well, we got a good job at Mac out of it, and Bob found a wife in college in Duluth, Cloquet's Darlene Rusbacka. And to this union, the good Lord has blessed them with 4 sons and 2 daughters. The 5 eldest all went into coaching and education, and Joel is also inclined that way.
The kids did go into coaching and into education. They must have seen something they liked along the road.
I thought maybe somebody turned out, because I do come home with problems, and we always have problems in coaching, just like any profession, whether it be yours or mine. But the point is that they must have seen a lot of good things, and I think they saw development in themselves and in other kids, and our community is a grand community in Chisholm, and we're all athletically oriented, inclined, and I got to credit the community, the people in our community, for doing my kids a lot of good. It wasn't just me, it was a total situation.
Both parents are very proud that their youngsters chose Bob's profession too.
It's kind of unique, I guess, that they would do that, but I guess they went through it so many years and watching Bob that they decided maybe that's what they all wanted to do.
In other words, they liked what Dad did for a living.
Well, I guess so. They must have.
After coaching in McGregor and Barnum, Bob returned to his hometown. And from the start, he has been dedicated to the youngsters in the Saturday grade school program.
Well, I think we're trying to institute a mentality, and it doesn't mean basketball especially, but I think sport in general. And it gets the parents involved in the situation, even though we don't bring them in too close. We still expect the support of kids. And when you get them to the gym, I think you'll find that most parents who support your kids will find some success in their kids' activities.
30 years, you've seen a lot of kids come and go in this grade school program here.
Well, yes, we have seen a lot of them and a lot of good ones. We lose quite a few. We probably run about 80 kids to the program on the Saturday mornings. We probably go about 18 times, 18 Saturdays, one way or another. We have terminating tournaments that we run. And we do lose a lot of kids that go by the wayside because they have other things they want to do. But I guess that's a test you have to put to kids. Because everybody isn't a basketball player. They might be a hockey player, a swimmer, and fine. That is what they should be looking at. You can't channel kids into places that their friends bring them to. We want them to make a decision as to what their capabilities are and mentality is in respect to sport. And we accept them all here in basketball and hope that they all succeed. But you know the numbers as well begin to deplete or deteriorate over a period of time, and we're left with the kids that really want to spend their time at the game.
Chisholm's just won state basketball title is the 4th for the town, the 3rd for McDonald. His 569 career coaching wins is topped only by John Nett of Winona Cotter, who retired with 588. With sophomores Dave Lacoe and Brian Thompson leading next year's Blue Streaks, Bob should become the state's winningest high school basketball coach late next February. Yet, as with anyone in success, there are critics, the most heard that Chisholm runs up too many points.
Well, I think we've got an antiquated mentality in respect to basketball because the game has changed considerably, and scoring 100 points isn't that big a deal. We've been offensively oriented in Chisholm as long as I can remember. I can remember Harvey Rolls as an example, my coach, wanting everybody to put the ball through the basket. Then defense is nice, and maybe some people say we don't play it very often, but we do try to play defense as well. But I think scoring is a fun part of the game, and it's an entertainment part of the game. We don't really want to put people to sleep. Sometimes we fail with the type of play we use because other teams are in a biorhythmic high, perhaps, and have the strategy that might negate what we do. But by and large, we like to be entertaining. I always say that nobody's going to come and watch you if you put them to sleep. They might as well stay in and sit in front of the TV set at home and do that. And we've had good crowds here, and that isn't the essence of it all, money or the crowds. But the point is, there's an exhilaration to doing things well, and we just have to think that offense is quite as big a deal as defense.
With the head coach, the mother statistician, and 6 athletes, basketball, you would expect, is the topic in the McDonald home.
Well, usually, especially when you lose, then you really play it over again at nighttime. So,
But I'm sure, even at the dinner table, basketball has to be a conversation.
well, usually that's the main topic, wherever we are.
Then, and who is this?
That's Shaquille O'Neal.
Oh, okay. Women are usually more emotional about sports than boys. How do you go to a game?
Well, I go to a game trying to be calm, cool, and collected, but I guess doing stats, I really can't holler that much, except once in a while I do get on the referees, of course, and they always hear me. They know my voice. So, but other than that, I don't know. I guess I'm just plain normal.
It is indeed a very normal family, the McDonalds, Minnesota's basketball family.
When it was time for me to buy a new car, I was a little bit apprehensive. I had some idea of what I wanted, but with so many cars and dealerships, where do you start? So I asked a lot of people I knew, and I did some checking on my own. I wanted the best car at the best price. I went to Anderson Chevrolet in Mountain Iron, Minnesota. It's obvious why Anderson Chevrolet has been in business for 75 years. They helped me find the right car. If you're looking for a new car, head to Anderson Chevrolet. They won't steer you wrong.
If your family's tired of the same old takeout food, bring home the finest Italian food on the Iron Range from Valentini Supper Club. Valentini's has a full takeout menu featuring their famous homemade Italian foods: ravioli, carbonara, chicken cacciatore, gnocchi, and more. Just call ahead to place your order, and remember, if you're entertaining, you can buy Valentini's great pastas, meats, and sauces frozen in bulk and at wholesale prices to cook at home. Valentini's famous Italian restaurant, still one of the finest supper clubs on the Iron Range in downtown Chisholm.
The First National Bank of Chisholm is the Northland's real estate lender with a staff of experts to help you with your home purchasing or refinancing, plus competitive interest rates on FHA, VA, and conventional loans, financing homes in all of Northeast Minnesota. The First National Bank of Chisholm also has car and boat loans available with some of the lowest rates in the area. Just 8.5% on a 3-year loan, 9.98% on a 4-year loan. Competitive rates and friendly service. That's what First National Bank of Chisholm is all about.
Congratulations to Coach Bob McDonald and the Chisholm Blue Streaks on a great season from these area businesses. Rupp Furniture, serving northern Minnesota for over 86 years. WMFG Radio, the high school and college sports station of the Iron Range. And Gornick's Big Dollar, supporting Chisholm athletics for 70 years.
Bob and Darlene, it's often difficult to get them all together even at holidays. But they were all in a group at the Kawatanipi basketball camp last summer. Mike is the oldest, class of 75 at Chisholm High. He then went to South Dakota State. He coached on the staff of Askov, then went on to Lyman, South Dakota, where he won a state championship in '85. It's in his 3rd year at Cambridge.
3 weeks ago, Cambridge won the Region 7 AA title and a trip to the state. Even last summer, Mike had high hopes for the program there.
We have some good kids. It struggled for a while back in the 80s. They had good programs in Cambridge in the 70s, and now in the 90s, late 80s and 90s, we're trying to get it geared up again. And I got a good group of kids that are coming up. I got a good group of sophomores next year, and got some good 7th and 8th graders. So Cambridge hopefully will have some success now in the years to come.
As Darlene pointed out, it is unique that the children all went into teaching and coaching, and their reasons are similar.
Well, I don't know, probably the enjoyment of it all, probably. Mostly, I was associated with basketball from the very start. I had some success, and I think anytime you have some success, like 2 state championship teams, 3 teams in a state tournament, I think it gets in your blood, and anytime you're successful at it, whatever you do in life, you just want to keep being successful, and I think that's what started me into coaching, and I'm having a pretty good time of it right now, too.
Mike, what
one thing, if there is one thing that you learned in playing basketball or growing up that you try to incorporate in your coaching and your teaching today?
Probably being somewhat disciplined. You know, growing up under my dad, I was always had discipline. You know, and I think that's mainly the thing that I try to point across to my kids that I'm coaching now. That being disciplined, getting along with one another, is probably the key to success. It doesn't matter sometimes how much ability you have, but if you can play together and like each other on the floor, that probably is the number one key to success.
Paul graduated from Chisholm a year later, went on to the University of Nebraska, then transferred to South Dakota State. He is coached at Cotton, Tower Sedan, and presently the men's basketball coach and athletic director at Vermilion Community College in Ely. Paul was in charge of the Kawatanipi basketball camp.
Oh, everything's going really well. We had quite a few more kids than we expected. We ended up with 87 total campers, running really smooth, and kids are having a real good time. Nobody's had to call home yet or anything for homesickness, so that's a good sign. And coaching staff and the kids are having a real good time.
Keep them busy during the day, Paul, and it's a little better at night for you, too.
Oh, yeah, we try to get them working hard during the day in the basketball, and once we get out to the camp, get them in the water, swimming and tubing a little bit, and now as the week goes along, they get a little bit more tired and get to sleep a little bit earlier.
Let me ask you now, what made you get into coaching and education?
Well, you know, we lived and died athletics growing up in our family, and watching my dad over the years instilled something in me to continue on giving something with the sport of basketball to other people, and I really enjoy it, and I don't think I would have as much fun doing anything else. Well, the one thing that he instilled in us is to be successful in anything, you have to have some style of discipline, and that's the main thing, along with a good work ethic. That's very, very important to be successful, not only in athletics, but in everyday life, and that's the one thing that I've carried over from his philosophy.
Is discipline hard to hammer into kids these days?
It is, and it isn't. You know, there's certain kids that don't need any direction as far as discipline, and there's some that need to prod a little bit more, but basically they're all good kids, and if you show some interest in them and spend the time that's needed, everything seems to fall in place.
And two daughters in the McDonald family. Susan graduated from high school in 1980, and Judy graduated in 1984, and both graduated from South Dakota State.
The McDonald family has two lovely girls who are in the coaching profession, too, Sue and Judy. And Sue, tell us what happened to you after you left Chisholm High. Just a little background.
Okay, after I left Chisholm, I enrolled at South Dakota State University, played basketball for the Jackrabbits for 4 years. Upon graduating from there, I took a job at Wells Easton High School, coached for 2 years down at Wells Easton, and am now in my 3rd year at Crosby Ironton High School.
And I want to ask you the same thing that I asked your brothers. What in your growing up caused you to get into coaching and teaching?
Well, I have to say my dad, from watching him coach my brothers and from being down at the gym and playing myself. My dad, I think, has always been a very inspirational person for me and a big role model, and I guess I just wanted to follow in his footsteps, and seeing my 2 older brothers play and coach, I guess I wanted to do that as well.
Was there anything else in your mind growing up that you might have wanted to be?
In 2nd grade, I guess I wanted to be a nurse, and that idea kind of blew aside. I guess I always wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to share what my knowledge and my background in basketball and help young kids become better people as well as better athletes. And I think in today's society, it's really helpful for people like us to be good role models, because there's so much else out there that can affect a child's life in the negative way.
Judy also went to South Dakota State. She coached girls basketball at Nashwauk-Keewatin in the 89-90 school year, but took leave this year to begin raising a family. She talked about having a famous father for a coach.
Well, we were coached by somebody else, but my dad helped us out a lot. Like during halftime, he'd send things down, what we were doing and what we could do better. And after the game every night, we'd walk home and wonder what Dad would have to say, worried what he'd say, and get home and he'd give us lecture on what we did wrong and what we did right and helped us out that way.
Was coaching always, or teaching, in your future as you were growing up? What turned you to that profession?
Well, the same reason as Sue is we've always been around basketball, working with kids, grew up with it, and it's just kind of natural to go and do that also.
Judy, what about your mom? She had a big role in all this McDonald basketball family too, didn't she?
Yeah, she had a big role, always behind us, cheering at the games, have our meals ready before the games, did everything for us. Did the stats, both girls and boys, when I played in both.
So she's the one we go to if we want to find out anything about your kids.
Yep, she knows everything about us.
I mean, do you discuss coaching problems and strategy and things like that? Does it all come together?
I guess nobody tells anybody what they should do. If we ask for help, you know, especially my dad, he's always there to give you an idea or two. And, you know, Judy and Mike had the opportunity to watch my girls play in the district tournament this year, which, you know, I felt was really helpful for me. And, you know, we just pat each other on the back. We always look for each other's scores in the newspaper, and it's really fun to keep up on each other's, you know, teams and how well they're doing.
This is a close family, and they stay close by respect and feeling for each other. Tom graduated from Chisholm High in 1982, went on to play on a national contender at South Dakota State. He was coaching at Lyman, South Dakota, when a job opened at Ely last fall.
It's good to get all the McDonalds together here. We don't get together that often, and it's good. We like playing basketball, so it's good to come here and all get together and work on a little basketball.
You know, I asked your mom, who's the scorekeeper, about when you have a family reunion. She says, I'm not sure, but the whole gang is together over at the Quad-Nippy basketball camp.
Yeah, we are. We holidays, we got some people going different ways, and don't get together too often. We got people all around. I'm in South Dakota and all around, so it's good to get us together. And this is the first time in a while that we've all been together and again to play a little basketball.
Where was the desire on your part to get into coaching as you grew up?
I think it came from my dad. I never really thought of being anything else but a coach, and I spent a lot of time taking after my dad and my older brothers. You know, they followed his lead, and nothing ever else came into my mind. I wanted to be a coach. I wanted to stay with the game, and I thought the best way to stay with basketball would be to coach, and I didn't want to get anything else where I'd be away from the game, so the desire came from my dad.
Well, you know, your dad said he didn't have to push and shove, that you guys just kind of gravitated into it.
Right, and, you know, he was never one to say, Tom, I want you to be a coach, and we just took for granted that, you know, that's what we wanted to do, and we all took Mike's lead or my dad's lead, and we all followed in. I don't know if Joel's going to get into it, but I think he probably might, so everybody followed one another, but there's never any pushing or shoving to get us into it. In my coaching, you know, discipline is very key. If you don't have any discipline, you're not going to be able to control your kids, and it's going to show on the floor. So he's a good disciplinarian, and I think we've taken from that and on and off the floor discipline the kids, and he'll run a better program.
In just a moment, a look at this year's chapter of the McDonald's, Minnesota's basketball family.
When it was time for me to buy a new car, I was a little bit apprehensive. I had some idea of what I wanted, but with so many cars and dealerships, where do you start? So I asked a lot of people I knew, and I did some checking on my own. I wanted the best car at the best price. I went to Anderson Chevrolet in Mountain Iron, Minnesota. It's obvious why Anderson Chevrolet has been in business for 75 years. They helped me find the right car. If you're looking for a new car, head to Anderson Chevrolet. They won't steer you wrong.
If your family's tired of the same old takeout food, bring home the finest Italian food on the Iron Range from Valentini's Supper Club. Valentini's has a full takeout menu featuring their famous homemade Italian foods: ravioli, carbonara, chicken cacciatore, gnocchi, and more. Just call ahead to place your order, and remember, if you're entertaining, you can buy Valentini's great pastas, meats, and sauces frozen in bulk and at wholesale prices to cook at home. Valentini's famous Italian restaurant. Still one of the finest supper clubs on the Iron Range in downtown Chisholm.
The First National Bank of Chisholm is the Northland's real estate lender, with a staff of experts to help you with your home purchasing or refinancing, plus competitive interest rates on FHA, VA, and conventional loans, financing homes in all of Northeast Minnesota. The First National Bank of Chisholm also has car and boat loans available with some of the lowest rates in the area. Just 8.5% on a 3-year loan, 9.98% on a 4-year loan. Competitive rates and friendly service. That's what First National Bank of Chisholm is all about.
Congratulations to Coach Bob McDonald and the Chisholm Blue Streaks on a great season from these area businesses. Rupp Furniture, serving northern Minnesota for over 86 years. WMFG Radio, the high school and college sports station of the Iron Range. And Gornick's Big Dollar, supporting Chisholm athletics for 70 years.
Sixth child in the McDonald household began playing on the Streaks varsity in the 8th grade. Joel's climb to the top was sidetracked temporarily late in his junior year by an injury, and that pretty well took last year's team out of tournament contention.
After practice, me and another guy on our team, Ted Kreis, we were having a dunk contest, kind of screwing around after practice. We did that, like, after every practice we'd do that, and I planned to go up off 2 feet, and it just popped right there. The tendon pulled away a piece of my bone, so that's how it happened.
For Joel, this year was a record-chasing experience fueled by the fans and media, in addition to playing on the state's #1 rated single A team. Norm Grover Foley held the state record for points by a high school boy, 28-52. That was broken on February 8th. Dave Lakota McDonald, 2 of the 54 points he scored that night against Cotton. He passed Janet Carvinen's 31-29 points a month later in the District 28 finals against McGregor at the Hibbing Memorial Building. A long jumper in the 3rd quarter made McDonald the all-time high school scorer in Minnesota. He scored his first points in the 8th grade, a baseline jumper in '86. And his final points, 2 free throws, giving him 3,292 for a career, came with less than 2 minutes remaining in the single A title game with Westbrook Walnut Grove, and that was March 23rd at the St. Paul Civic Center. He did a great job of handling the media hype and fan accolades in his record-breaking year. Even last summer, he guarded against pressure.
Try to not to think about it, because that put a lot of pressure on me and the team. So I try not to think about it now, but
It was a long season and a great one for Joel and his Blue Streak teammates. The addition of Ted Kreis from Mesaba East prior to last season, the development of sophomore Dave Lacoe, contributions by Mike Rupert, Brian Thompson, and the rest of the young men led to one of the best basketball teams this state has ever seen. They struggled a bit in the regionals and in the first game of the state, but early in the Becker semifinal, it came together.
That looked like the Chisholm Blue Streaks during the regular season. I didn't really expect to have runs like that down at the state tournament. I figured the games would stay pretty close, but the one that surprised me was the championship game, ending up winning that by 16.
Well, gosh, you fell 8 points behind. What was your thinking then?
I think everybody on the team thought, oh no, what's going to happen? Like, I think almost felt like we were going down the drain in a way, but we talked a little bit about it at halftime. We came back out ready to go, and we played real well.
While teammate Ted Kreis, a fellow all-tournament selection, is headed for St. John's, Joel is not decided on a college as yet, but he will pursue coaching and education.
I'd say that's what I'll probably do too. I'll probably teach and coach just like the rest of them.
Why?
I don't know. I'd say it'll be easier for me because I can take the things that they do in coaching and teaching and be able to use it when I do that.
Roger Tutloff has coached with Bob McDonald for 24 years.
Felt real comfortable coaching with Bob over the years. We've always had a good relationship. I respect the man. He's very knowledgeable about the game. He has many good morals. And I don't have anything about being coaching under him. I look at it as coaching with him, and it's always been a kind of a privilege for me.
Bob McDonald indeed has a high sense of what's right and what's wrong. He instilled loyalty and dedication into his own family and to those he coached, and he isn't ready to retire yet either.
I enjoyed the high school scene probably because, well, as you can see, we got a big family, and I'm a family man. I couldn't see being out on the road, and that would bother me some. I think we're a close-knit unit because we all hung together, and the old man wasn't gone at any time during their growing-up years, and that kind of negated any looking up, you might say. But I don't know if it's a looking up. I get a great deal of pleasure out of dealing with young kids, because I think those are the real formative years. And if you can do anything with them then, it certainly would benefit society.
His success is no doubt made more complete by help from the home.
I guess Bob gets a little more emotional than I do, so I'm kind of the one that, when the kids did get chewed out, I was the one that was there to kind of console them, I guess.
Oh, I can't believe they got chewed out.
Oh, yes. In fact, when the girls played, if they didn't do very well, they'd walk in the house with tears already, hoping that they wouldn't get chewed out then by Bob afterwards.
This year came to a climax with the state championship.
I only go into any game feeling we're as good as they are. And then you have to show me that we're better. And my primary concern, I said that before the media there, is that we never want to be embarrassed. And I think maybe that's a good psychological situation or move, simply because kids prepare in that fashion. They don't overlook people, and it's easy to do. We could have been dumped anywhere, I suppose, but the kids had their heads screwed on right, and we weren't embarrassed, and it came out well for us in a splendid, idyllic, preordained year.
The McDonald's, Minnesota's basketball family.
This program has been brought to you by these fine area businesses: Anderson Chevrolet, Valentini Supper Club, First National Bank of Chisholm, Gornick's Big Dollar, Rupp Furniture, and WMFG Radio.
Wednesday night for the area high schools. Steve LePage will be along at 10 with the scores and highlights for you. One of the teams in action tonight is Chisholm. The Blue Streaks are at home against Babin and Barris, and as Greg Matson reports from Chisholm, the Streaks are armed and ready with the last in a long line of big scorers.
Okay, now, Old MacDonald had a farm, and this MacDonald is known for his hamburgers. But this MacDonald will be remembered for his contribution to basketball.
Well, we like fast players, but not fast food, I guess. That's what it amounts to. But
He's Bob McDonald, head coach of the Chisholm boys basketball team. He's also the father of a long line of Chisholm basketball talent. A look at the walls in the Blue Streak gym speak volumes. A plethora of McDonald's are posted on the All-State and 1,000 Point Club boards. But check out the last name. That name belongs to 6 foot 4.5-inch Joel McDonald, a 200-pound junior that will have major colleges drooling for the next 2 years. Well, Joel McDonald is the last of the McDonald clan. He may, in fact, be the very best. Joel is the last of 4 sons and 2 daughters. The 5 before him went on to play ball in the college ranks, and all 5 helped pave the way for their youngest brother.
I owe it all to them and my mom and dad, and of course my team. They, my brothers and sisters helped me out a lot, along with both of my parents. They really got me where I am right now.
McDonald led the state in scoring as a sophomore, averaging just over 33 points a game. He opened the season with a bang, tallying 45, then notched 37 in a win against Grand Rapids last Friday night. Is the success surprising?
No, not really, because I think each one has learned from the ones before them, and that just makes them a little bit better.
he has to look at me when I get home, I suppose. That's what all of them did. There have been many tears shed after, and that isn't because I beat on them, but we relate to each other in respect to basketball. Good times, poor times, they're always around for you.
Barring injury, Joel has a shot at Janet Carveden's state scoring mark of 3,129 points, and that would really help make a name for himself. In Chisholm, Greg Matson, Eyewitness Sports.
Nice story. College ball last night. The UMD men filled Romano Gym for their annual free ticket promotion, and Michigan Tech paid the price. The Dogs went to overtime with Tech.
McDonald to wear the Chisholm colors in a long line of brothers and sisters. Growing up as the youngest of a hoop-hungry family has helped Joel's presence on the court.
I've been in the gym shooting so much that I really don't have lack of confidence. I just go out there and shoot. And I think that everything's going to fall for me, but sometimes it just ends up that nothing falls. But I still have the confidence I do.
As a sophomore, Joel led Minnesota in scoring, averaging 33 points a game. This season, the Blue Streaks forward is up close to 40 points a game. But Joel's coach, who is also his dad, knows it's teamwork that gets Joel the points and Chisholm the W's.
He's a result of his other players that play with him, and they do very well by him. I think you realize that and see that a lot of the things he does are because of those kids, and on the feeds, on the setups. So I'm gratified by that, because that's the whole game for him.
Joel is also a 4.0 student with an excellent shot at the 31-year-old Minnesota State boys scoring record of 2,852 points. With his junior and senior seasons still remaining, the streaking scorer has a good chance of putting his name in the record book. Let us know about the record setters in your school. Write to us at ESPN Plaza, Bristol, Connecticut, 06010. Hometown Heroes.
Records. Ray Higgins has that. If he doesn't already have one, a young Chisholm man is going to have to build himself a trophy case.
Yeah, Joel McDonald, it looks like, barring injury or anything unforeseen, that he will set the state scoring record sometime this year.
That is great.
Great nice young man. Spent some time, some little basketball we're talking about here. All eyes have been on Chisholm's Joel McDonald so far, and rightly so. He's Minnesota's third all-time leading scorer and is on track to break the all-time record. That's one reason he's our Eyewitness Sports Prep Athlete of the Week, sponsored by the Minnesota Dairy Promotion Council. And one reason he's so good, Joel McDonald works hard off the court. His game day preparation begins here at home, shooting buckets with a mini ball and a mini hoop. That's the way his brothers and sisters did it.
The smaller ball gives you more accuracy, more touch in the smaller rim, so it's, I don't know, that's my dad's philosophy. I guess it works. He says it does, so.
That shooting pays off once the game starts. McDonald scored 37 against MIB on Tuesday. He had 40 and 46 points in a couple of wins last week. McDonald's the fifth member of the McDonald family to join the Blue Streaks 1,000-point club.
Using what they used to do what they did to succeed. The things I'm using today are the same things all my brothers and sisters have used in the past.
Now, when you score as much as McDonald does, you're going to hear things like he plays too much, that Chisholm runs up the score on other teams, that Joel's a ball hawk. He's heard those things too, and he doesn't worry, and neither do his teammates.
We look for him because we know he can put the ball in the hole. He's very generous with the ball. He'll give it to you. He'll give it to you. If you make the right cut and you want the ball, he'll give it to you. Definitely.
I bring it down. If I have a shot, I'll take it. And if the guy's open on my team, I'll give him the ball just as they would to me, which they do quite a bit.
And as far as running up the score and McDonald playing too much, well, it seems that opponents don't like to lose, but they'd like to see someone from the north break the record. And if it's Joel McDonald, so be it.
I guess what I'd like to see is we lost one hell of a governor from the state of Minnesota in the stronghold, and if this guy can make the rest of the state of Minnesota look to northern Minnesota as a basketball area, I wish him nothing but luck. I just hope he doesn't get that many against us.
So McDonald will keep shooting, and if he keeps up the pace, he'll have the all-time scoring record sometime this season. He says he'd like to do it, if not for himself, then for the rest of the North. But that is not Joel McDonald's primary aim.
It's in the back of my mind, and if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, that's fine. It's a goal. It's a thing that if I do achieve that record, it's something I look back on, not something I'll look right now as of getting. I look back on that, but right now I'm concerned mainly with getting on the state tournament.
Two more important numbers on McDonald for you. He's 549 points behind all-time record leader Norm Groh, and he's a 3.9 student in the classroom, too. Not too bad at all. So congratulations to Chisholm's Joel McDonald, our Prep Athlete of the Week, from all of us here at Eyewitness Sports and from the Minnesota Dairy Promotion Council.
Everybody knows that milk's for babies.
And you move into second place on the all-time Minnesota scoring list. He did that tonight with 32 points. Only Norm Groh of Foley leads him for the top spot all-time. Good night for Chisholm as we go to the final score, 65-53. McDonald had 32. Hibbing over Cambridge by 3. Hill Murray over Deer River by 30. Big Fork beats Little Fork Big Falls 59-53. At the Wood City Boys Tournament in Cloquet, the Lumberjacks got a good look at another Northland's best. Kevin Flynn of International Falls leap and lean for 2 there. In fact, Flynn.
And finally tonight, the state champion Chisholm Blue Streaks returned home today. A team that thumbed their nose to the season's hoopla and pressure, living up to their top ranking and bringing home the Class A crown.
I think we held up to the pressure very well. With all the pressure for Joel breaking the record, even the pressure of being the #1 ranked team in the state, we held up all season long. We went down the state tournament ranked #1, and we played up to that.
Well, the pressure was really great at times, but I think the guys that we have on our team and the townspeople, that really helped us make it through all of that as a team and kept ourselves focused.
Kind of a culmination of all the efforts many people have put into our program, and I think these kids depict what the community is and really what our program is to a great degree.
The Chisholm Blue Streaks are the 1991 champions of boys Class A basketball in Minnesota.
Talk about tradition and just a class act up in Chisholm, and our congratulations go out to Bob McDonald and the Blue Streaks. Only
Bauman had a big first half, 15 in the game for Troy. St. Cloud State's Hog Charnowski taking the lob on the reverse shot and drops it in. Charnowski had 13 for the St. Cloud, but Ryan Natchez off the steal gets a little excited for Nacho after the big dunk. He all for the St. Cloud, but Ryan Natchez off the steal gets a little excited for Nacho for the St. Cloud, but Ryan Natchez off the steal gets a little excited for Nacho after the big dunk. He also had 15. And we check out the final. Jermaine Showers added 15 for State as they go to 8-8 in the conference.